All right, we're still on day 13. This is a 44-page document. It's testimony by Rigo Polos. It's Tuesday, May the 29th, the year 2012 in Anchorage, Alaska. All rise. His Honor the Court. The Dishonorable United States District Court for the District of Alaska is now in session. The Dishonorable Robert J. Bryan presiding. Please be seated. Good morning. Good morning, Your Honor. First, this morning I want to make a couple of other comments regarding the hand grenade experiments. The basic rule can be found in Stumbaugh versus State of Alaska in the Supreme Court of Alaska, which stated, I think, the general rule that the basic requirement for admissibility of experimental evidence is that the experiment occurred under the substantially similar conditions to the actual event. And I think that's a universal rule. The whole thing is discussed in the case of United States v. Smith, 502 F.3D, 680, a 7th Circuit Court. And there's lots of other cases from around the country that follow that basic rule. In addition to the basic rule, of course, Rule 403, and besides my view that the conditions of the experiment that I excluded were not substantially similar to the evidence in any likely event. It's basic 403 rule that basically there's more heat than light in that and those experiments, so my ruling on that stands. Now I have this morning your two briefs regarding the blasting cap and the clothespin device, and I've read those documents. And does anybody want to be heard further on that? No, thank you, Your Honor. Miss Hayden. No, Your Honor, just to add, basically one argument that I did make on Thursday is that as far as connecting the clothespin device to the blasting cap device, I would consider that to be an experiment, that to be expert testimony for which I have no Rule 16 notice, and I had Rule 16, and had I had Rule 16 notice, I would have had my expert examine those items when he was up there. The court, yeah. And I am aware of that, and that's part of my thinking about these particular exhibits. It seems to me not inappropriate, and probably not even requiring expert testimony for a witness to show that the clothespin device would work, not as a destructive device, but as a setting up electrical current. If it's connected to electricity and the clothespin is pulled, what happens? It allows electricity to go through that device, and it seems not inappropriate to show that the blasting cap device would do whatever it does when electricity is provided to it. Connecting the two, I think, goes a step too far. In calling them a blasting cap, well, wait a minute. The one thing I don't know what that is, but the clothespin device is not a blasting cap. In and of themselves, I don't think they should be referred to as destructive devices. They are devices where, if things happen, electricity goes through them, and I think the testimony should be limited in that way. But I think in light of Mr. Vernon's statements, that it's appropriate to explain how those things work from a without showing that they were intended to do or without connecting them directly together. That may be argument, but I think it's not appropriate for expert testimony or any testimony. Is that clear enough? Miss Lamoureux, yes, Your Honor. Miss Hayden, yes, sir. The court, judges think that when they make rulings that they're being very clear, and I have had occasion to read some of my rulings that I couldn't understand when I went back to them and read them later, so I hope that's clear. The clerk, so Judge, does that mean that the new motion is granted? Pardon? The new motion, is that granted? Well, it's I guess granted in part and denied in part. The clerk, thank you. As orally indicated. The court, all right, are we ready for the jury? Scrocky, yes. Okay, bring the jury in. Where's our witness? He's coming. Did you retrieve the transcripts from the jury? Scrocky, yes, we did. Good morning, be seated, Mr. Regopolos. Christopher Regopolos, plaintiff's witness, resume the stand. Miss Lamoureux, you may continue. Miss Lamoureux, good morning, good morning. Mr. Regopolos, when we left off last week, you were explaining to a jury about a blasting cap, and we'll go ahead and pull up the photo for the jury. It's Exhibit 231 is the photo, and you talked about that on Thursday at the end of the day, is that right? That's correct. And what is that? And what is that it missing right there? It's missing a couple of components. One would be a power source, like a heavy battery, a 9-volt battery, something of that nature. The other would be a potential switch. So here, those wires were not connected to anything? No, ma'am. Okay, let me go and show you the photo that is already admitted in 232, and we'll hand you the physical item that's already been admitted. Miss Lamoureux, if we could have the lights, please, Madam Clerk. Can you explain to the jury what we're looking at? What is that? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is what we'll call this a clothespin switch. What is it? What it is, it's a common clothespin with a metal spring, and it's designed, to open and close, and it's been altered with these two shells, casings on the end. And it has attached them to two electrical wires, and the ends have stripped off their insulation, made into small loops. On this end, great care was made to have them soldered, so they'll now adhere to these shell casings. We'll see in the center here, this is a wooden insulator, and what it's doing a couple of things. One, it's keeping these two shell casings from touching, because of the tension on the spring, and it also is acting with this string here, with the piece of metal, so then when this is pulled out of the can, you see the two shells come together. So it's very easy to manipulate, set, and once again, the string could have multiple links, whatever, but as a switch, so we're calling this a clothespin switch. And so when those two shell casings come together, what happens? When the insulator is pulled out like this, the shell casings come together, it allows the current to flow through the wires, enclosing the circuit, allowing the power to go to its end. Miss Lamoureux, thank you, Mr. Rigopoulos. I have no other questions for you at this time. We're doing it out of order, Your Honor. Pardon me. We're doing it a different order. The court, oh sure. The clerk, your microphone, please. The court. Mr. Dooley, I think I'll go first. Traverso, Mr. Dooley wants to go. Mr. Dooley. Mr. Rigopoulos, I'm Tim Dooley representing Coleman Barney. Hello, sir. A regular fragmentation grenade properly made would have TNT in it, correct? No, sir. Miss Lamoureux, objection, clarification of properly, and what was I missed the term? Mr. Dooley, I think Mr. Rigopoulos was about to answer. The court, the objection's overruled. Mr. Dooley. No, sir. Okay, what would it have in it? It's called a military explosive called Composition B. And what is Composition B? It's a high explosive. It's generally stable. The military identified in World War II. And that's what we're using in military ordnance these days. And that isn't similar to TNT. It is very similar. Oh, okay. But it's not straight TNT. All right. Now, during your testing, you were testing the fuses that were shipped to you, correct? Yes, sir. Could you tell us if you need your report? That's fine. What, you use these Q designations, Q with a number. Q means question, I guess? Yes, sir. And the DNA people use that. Fingerprints use that. You all use that in your lab. That's correct. Could you please tell us which fuses were Q what? Okay, if I may, I'd like to refer to my report. Yes, please do. And you had 4 fuses you were dealing with, right? Yes, sir, that's correct. All right. While they were digging that up, smokeless powder is what is in the bullets that policemen carry, correct? Yes, sir. And everyone fires unless they're firing old-time black powder guns, correct? That's correct. And now you have your report. I have my notes. The clerk, Mr. Dooley, you're doing such a good job in front of the microphone. I need to push it back a little bit. If you could push it just a few inches further back. Mr. Dooley, because I'm too loud? Thank you. Okay, sir. Well, tell us which fuse was which on this Q thing, could you? In respect to our testing, yes, sir. Q12.2 was the first one that we initiated the test. All right, and I described it Thursday. It hung up, after we tried to disassemble it, so the spoon didn't come off right. It got stuck halfway, all right. So we replaced it with Q15, and I can't remember the exhibit number. We showed it in court on Thursday. That one did fire and produce flame in our final test, which I believe we showed video and photographs of that as well. Okay. And there were 2 more fuses. Yes, sir. Q13.2, Q13.2, and Q14. Now, what did you do? What sort of testing did you do with Q13.2? There was no testing done on that fuse. And why? There was no need as we completed our results in the prior fuse. Oh, on Q15, if it worked? Well, if you remember from my testimony on Thursday, we disassembled Q14 and submitted the powders to chemistry for examination. Q13.2 wasn't necessary to be redundant with that exam, And for demonstration of how the fuse produces a flame, Q50, Q15 successfully produced that result. Okay, each of these fuses, were they different from one another? Obviously, they're metaphysically different, but were they different in type and style? No, sir. I gather they're not very dangerous in and of themselves, correct? I would think they would be harmful if they went off in your hand or in your face. I think they would be considered dangerous. Could you get on an airplane with them? No, sir. But they were shipped to you by Federal Express. Yes, sir. Okay, when you were doing the fuse test, were you measuring out the powder? The chemist would be the one to answer that question. Hold on. When you were doing the fuse test, not the chemist, are you talking about the powder inside the fuse? No, the powder from whatever you purchased. Oh, my technician would have done that. Okay, when you were in the field, how many were there when you were testing the fuses? If you'll wait 1 second and sure, it doesn't have to be precise, but, okay, I think 6 people were present. Okay, were they all newcomers? What kind of experience did they have? Years of experience? Okay. Miss Lamoureux, objection, relevance. The court, I think he may answer it. Mr. Dooley, okay, my technician, who is a qualified technician in our unit, affirmative. She's been with us for 3 years. Another device examiner trainee who's been with the FBI as an agent for approximately 15 years as a bomb tech, approximately. I'm not positive, at least 12. The range OIC and range safety officer, OIC, is officer in charge. Those are both retired Marine Corps and Army explosive ordnance disposal technicians with a minimum of 20 years each. And our photographer, who's not an explosive person but a professional photographer, I think he has 20 years as well. And you have 13? I have 15 in the FBI. 15, okay. And you've been out to this site before? Where? In the field where you were testing these things? Yes, sir. Had you had to test these types of things before? Or was this the first time you all ever did it? It's the first time I'd done a fuse test. Okay, how about anybody else on the team? Was it a first time for them? I'm not sure. You went from a 1-inch stake to a crowbar? Yes, sir. Because the 1-inch stake wasn't holding up enough? Yeah, the ground wouldn't hold it as we were pulling it. That's correct. And used an inverted ammo can, and it looked, if I may, is there some sort of professional setup that can be used to test fuses? Not that I'm aware of. Okay, and in terms of measurement, I'll back off on that for a minute. We kept seeing electrical tape on things. Did you all put electrical tape on? I'd have to see what you're referring to, sir. All right, the first thing I'll do is, here we go. I don't think this one is admitted. 639 is not admitted. Mr. Rigopoulos, and am I saying your name right? Yes, sir, you are. I hear different methods. You're the first one to get it right, sir. Okay. I don't think you have anything on your screen, 639? No, sir. Do you all know how to do that? There's power to it, but there's no image. Somebody much smarter than I has to turn on the camera up there. While we were waiting for IT, I'll switch gears a bit. The powder that you all used in the fuse test was not the powder found in the trailer, correct? That's correct, yes, sir. You purchased that on the open market somewhere? Yes. The bottles were typically 1-pound bottles for Alliant. I believe that's correct, yes, sir. And a 1-pound bottle for the Hodgson? Yes, sir. How do you say that? I believe it's Hogden. Hogden. In your testing, you were using an electric match to get some of the stuff to burn, correct? That was the second and third test? That's correct. All right, and you had to use the electric match because you consumed the fuses? No, sir. Okay, why? Once we proved that the fuses would produce fire, that part of our examination was complete, so an electric match produces fire. So when we moved to our second and third test, and out of safety, adding the fuse to an improved grenade, you wouldn't want to attempt an unsafe act to try to pull that fuse, and because to explode a grenade, and as you saw in the first fuse exams, a couple of them hung up, and had that happened with those put in the grenade, we would have had to approach that to fix it, and that's extremely dangerous. So one of our practices is once the fact that we identified the fuses will initiate fire, then we can move to the electrical match, which produces fire as well, and it's very reliable. It's very safe, and it's controlled by us instead of, the fate or nature, because, things that become altered might act out of design. What was it you're trying to test when you're using an electric match? We were trying to show that in the second and third test that those powders would ignite within this confines of the grenade bodies, and the pressure would generate dramatic effect that causes structure to fail, and those grenade bodies would shatter and move in all directions in a great speed velocity. Okay, I'm looking for something else that doesn't need your monitor here. Hang on. In the testing of the fuses, it took about 55 minutes from when you started testing fuses until you finally had a success. Okay, correct. I was aware of how long it took, but that sounds possible. All right, and that is meant by the term hang fire. That's describing how the spoon came up when it didn't come all the way off. It got stuck. The fuse came up with the spring and didn't just stop moving. We call that hang fire. That's the jargon in the bomb community for something like that. It's now in an unsafe condition, and we still had to recover it. And that's what we went on the other fuse. The thing did not function as expected it would. That was Q12.2. Yes, sir. And that gave you the hang fire. Yes, sir. And someone in your group contacted the Rocky Point Arsenal concerning these 4 fuses, correct? Yes. And they said that there were manufacturer rejects, correct? That's what they suggested, and gave various reasons as to why they were rejected, correct? Yes, sir. And somehow those end up on the open market? I can't answer that. All right, okay. You were testifying, I was about to say yesterday, 4 days ago, that Q12.2, the fuse, was damaged while in the jig for the inerting process. Yes, sir. Why are you attempting to inert a fuse which you plan to test? That was my first test that we planned on, was the one to get the powders out of it, and it was unsuccessful to try to get them out. So you used Q14 to get the powders out for testing, correct? All right, then use Q12.2, which you had not disassembled for testing, and that's the one that kept hang firing. That's accurate. All right, I see you have a technician here. Judge, can we take a break? The court, he's going to be a bit, looks like it's going to be more than blah, 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 Your Honor. Do you want to go ahead with other things, or I've just about examined my non-video things. Well, all right, let's take a short break until we can get that fixed. All rise. Matter stands in brief resource. All rise. His dishonorable, the court, the United States Court is again in session. Please be seated. Bring the jury in. Okay. Your Honor, can we get the headsets pardoned? Can we get the headsets? Yeah, Denali. Does everyone want them? Do you all need it, or just... Juror, I would like them. Okay, you better give me one too. I left mine old ears. Yeah, okay, Mr. Dooley, thank you. Rigopolis, you have in front of your government exhibit 609. Have you ever seen that photograph before? Yes, sir. And what is it you understand the photograph represents? Represents 17 practice grenades that were expended, fuses attached. All right. And these are the 17 practice grenades that were seized at the trailer, you understand? Those were the 17 seized, correct? I offer government exhibit 639. No objection. It may be admitted. Mr. Dooley, if I can get this thing to work right, it is up here. Now I have to give you actual photograph. Can you hold that up for the jury to see the actual habit? And that's a bit clear in the overheads. That's on the monitors there, correct? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do you have no electrical tape on any of these 17 grenades, correct? No, sir. Am I correct or incorrect? You're correct. All right, thank you. But later in certain films that you sent us, there is electrical tape on the fuses and other things, correct? I would have to see what you described. All right, let me go to that. Hang on a second. Mr. Dooley, for some reason our screen is very dark that we're seeing. Is that true with everybody's? No, we're good. It's not dark. Can you see that, Mr. Rigopolis? Yes, sir. Okay, look to you familiar. I'm going to stop on page 23 here for a second. All right, let's continue with page 23. Okay, look familiar to you? Yes, it does. Let me just play a bit of it so you can fairly say you've seen it. Let me make it bigger for you. For the record, could Mr. Dooley identify what he's showing the witness? Right, I'm showing CB-KK by Mr. Dooley. Look familiar to you, Mr. Rigopolis? Yes, sir. Anyway, I'll offer into evidence CBKK. We've not had, I'm not sure what CBKK is. It needs more identification. This is a film that attempts to test a fuse, correct? That's what it appears to be. And the fuse was Q15 that you were attempting to test, or Q12.2. At this point, I would venture to say 12.2, all right. Anyway, I offer CB-KK. No objection, no objection. The court grounds. We haven't seen what Mr. Dooley has identified as CBKK. Yeah, you haven't shown the whole. Judge, can you get closer to the microphone? Pardon. Can you get closer to the microphone? You haven't shown the whole thing. I can do that real quick, so I don't. My understanding is it doesn't show a test at all. Well, I don't know what it does. Well, I don't know what it does show, so we'll go ahead and play it for them. That's not from the beginning, I don't believe, from the screen. Right, it isn't from the beginning. I didn't want to put everyone to sleep. Does KK start at the beginning? No, the KK I'm putting in just from here on. Mr. Scrocky, you might want to hit your mute button. Yes, ma'am. About 40 more seconds, and that's the amount I was going to play. Mr. Rigopoulos, do you recognize that? May I voir dire the witness, Your Honor? Pardon? May I voir dire the witness? We're not there yet. Do you recognize this attempt to test? Yes, sir. I'm done. Okay. Is there audio with this video? Yes. I couldn't hear the audio. Is there audio? There may be. Mr. Dooley, there is. Do you want to hear the audio? Do you? Do you see any electrical tape? Do you see any electrical tape? It's possible. It's possible on the top of the spoon. I would use that also to secure it to the stake. Ms. Lamoureux, objection, relevance, Your Honor. There were photos previously offered by the government which defense counsel objected to on this topic. Well, not on this exact topic. Well, Mr. Dooley, I'm not sure what you're offering here. Is this a CD with just that much on it, or is this what? I don't know. Well, it will be a CD before we're done here, but this little portion I'm playing is showing an unsuccessful test similar to the test we saw earlier. Yeah, I understand that. I'm not questioning the subject matter. I'm questioning what's the exhibit. You know, we have a part of something that you're right. Suggesting that's not marked separate as an exhibit and there's an audio to it, and I don't know what that everybody has heard to know whether to object to it or not. So we may be a little premature here. I don't know. Mr. Dooley. I'll confess my technological abilities were such that I was having trouble getting it on a CD, but I'm sure I can get that solved. I have people I know, but this is the portion I was going to play, and the audio portion has a countdown and nobody's cussing. Well, just people are doing their work. Are there objections to this other than relevance? If Mr. Dooley could at least identify where the video came from, and those timestamps that he indicates that he is going to put it on CD, that would be helpful, because right now KK is blank on his exhibit list. Yes, I'm going to offer this one at 1 minute and 17 seconds to 4 minute 15 seconds, and we maintain our relevancy objection. All right, well, I think it may be admitted subject to production of the actual exhibit for the record, CBKK. And would be my characterization of the sound be correct? Mr. Rigopoulos, just people working, countdown, that type of thing? Yes, sir. Any objection to the sound? We would like to hear the sound. Video recording. Do you want the jury to see this? Hang on a second. Okay. Play the video and audio. Do I have to cue it up properly? There we go. Well, it's not evidence, so we don't play it where the jury can hear it until it's admitted. Well, I offered into evidence. The government wants to hear it first. Oh, to inspect and hear. Sure. The whole exhibit before I roll on audio part of it. Okay, well, I don't know how to get it, so only they're listening to it. So, well, I have to excuse the jury for that purpose. I guess. Take a hike, folks. We won't be a minute, hopefully. 4 minutes. The jury, okay, play it. Are we all able to hear, or am I the only one? We can hear. You can hear, okay. Defendant's exhibit. And that concludes it. All right. Further objections, counsel? No. Allow me. I have 2 more. Allow me to do those while the jury's out, if I may. All right. So KK in its entirety has been admitted. Yes, thank you. In its entirety, meaning 117. I meant the video and the audio in what I was asking. Okay. Play the audio video. Defendant's exhibit CBLL. This is CBLL. It would go from 25 seconds to 1 minute 5 seconds. Okay. While we're at it, Mr. Rigopolos, did CBLL appear to be an accurate portrayal of your attempted test? Yes. And the government objects on relevancy grounds? Is this more of the same or separate? It's a separate testing using sticks, I guess. A baseball bat, maybe. Is that correct? It's the same test trying to get the initial fuse to fire the target powder. It's the second attempt at the same test? Yes, sir. All right. I think it may be admitted, well, CB-LL. And then I have CB-MM, and it will start at 25 seconds and go to the end. It's fairly brief. Actually, I could end it at 50 seconds to save everybody some pain. Mr. Rigopolos, this is the same test, but a third attempt? Yes, sir. Anyway, I offer CB-MM into evidence. No objection. All right, it may be admitted. And okay, what's all that I was going to... All right, let's bring the jury back, please. Ladies and gentlemen, in your absence, I have admitted 3 exhibits, CBKK, LL, and MM. Go ahead, Mr. All right. We're about to play CBKK. Play it. Mr. Rigopolos, it appears that there was no measuring of powder before placing it in the top of the ammo can, correct? Yes, sir. Just poured it out in the bottle, correct? Yes, sir. Play the next one, CBKK. Are you playing a different exhibit next? I'm going to play CB-LL, thank you. CB-LL played. Mr. Rigopolos, what's that stick? I believe it's the top end of a shovel. All right. What are you trying? Somebody's trying to do something there. What are they trying to do? Earlier I described the term hang fire, where the spoon comes up and then stopped. From a distance, they're attempting to knock the spoon off where it's stuck. And there's a problem with the spoon? Yeah, as I mentioned on Thursday in my testimony, that they attempted to extract the powders from the fuse. It's a voice. It's kind of smushed, a middle part of it, which is not allowing it to come off. Play the audio, video. That's all we need to hear. Lights, Mr. Lights, please. So those were tests on 12, Q12.2. Yes, sir. Fuse. All of those fuses you were testing were smoke fuses. That's correct. They were not fuses originally made as fragmentation grenade fuses. That's correct. The fuses were all 0.7 to 2 seconds in time. That's correct. A person using one would be a fragmentation grenade, would be, I don't know, super stupid, suicidal. How would you put it? Lamoureux, objection. Would you use? No, he may answer it. All right. The question, sir. You need my question again? Please. Sure. Would you use one of those 0.7 second to 2 second fuses, or the fuses in a fragmentation grenade? If I knew what type of fuse it was in a fragmentation grenade, then it's appropriate. But I know this fuse is not for fragmentation, and I would not. I didn't understand. If it were the proper fuse for a fragmentation grenade, no problem, correct? That's correct. But a smoke fuse put into a fragmentation grenade with such a short delay would be near suicidal, correct? Yes. All right. I'm going to double check some things, and I think I may have done. The fuse is supposed to be stored between 50 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, about 35% relative humidity, and it could last forever if that happens, correct? Objection, foundation, relevance. You may answer if you know. Repeat the question, sir, Mr. Dooley. All right. If you need to look at your report, I think it's Fed 38044 if you have that. Basically, these fuses can be stored almost indefinitely if they're stored at 50 to 90 degrees at 35% humidity, correct? I'm not sure. Okay, do you have a report up there? I have my report, and it doesn't have that number. I don't think I recall that. Okay. You don't have 3844 with you? Is that exhibit 3844? It would be Fed Bates stamp 3844. Scrocky. Bottom right side of the page. I'm not seeing that. And they're all going to pull up something to help you remember? Okay. They highlighted it on your monitor there. Thank you very much. Does that refresh your recollection? Yes, these are. All right. From our manufacturer. And essentially it can be stored for a long time if it's all right, if it's at the right temperature between 50 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit and 35% relative humidity. Yes, sir, that says indefinitely. Okay, it doesn't say anything about 60 below zero. There is no date here to describe that. All right, and I think you noted that there were correction. That concludes my examination. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Traverso, good morning, sir. Hello, sir. And you last testified last week, you mentioned that you seen the exhibit. Can you get closer to the microphone, please? You had seen an exhibit with a box with JB Weld and a canister and some other items in there, correct? Yes, sir. And you were not part of the seizure, correct? That's correct. These items are right, so you don't know exactly where the JB Weld was other than you noticed that it was in the picture, correct? Well, I spoke to the bomb technician who described that it was collected from the same location. Okay, thank you. When we speak about 17 practice grenades, just so we can be clear, we're also the phrase grenade bodies is used interchangeably, correct? Yes, sir. And there's a hole in the top of the bottom, correct? Yes, sir. Do you find any traces of JB Weld in one of the holes or those grenade bodies? No. Thank you. And you were speaking at least 4 weeks. You were speaking last week of these levers. These are manufacturer defects, correct? That's according to the manufacturer, right? Okay. And did the manufacturer also explain to you that that there was no indication that these had ever been assembled? I'm not aware of that. Which paragraph, sir? It's a memo from Thomas Moore to J. Tremblay. It's the lab organization that your lab relied on. Okay. Can you go now to the next paragraph? There is no indication that they were ever assembled into a grenade. Does that refresh your recollection? From this document, yes. Traverso, thank you. No further questions. Miss Hayden, no questions. Redirect examination. Miss Lamoureux. My apologies, Mr. Regopolos. You were asked some questions just now from Mr. Traverso regarding 17 grenade bodies that were found in the trailer. Did they have fuses on them? They had expended fuses on them, yes. So those fuses had, when you say expended, what do you mean? They had already been used. Okay, so 17 grenade bodies that had already been used. Correct. And he asked you whether you had found any traces of JB Weld on them. In order to get them to explode, would you necessarily need JB Weld? Practice grenades, no. The second, where you asked some questions about the 2-second delay on the fuses. Can that 2-second delay, that fuse to be used in a tripwire instead of as a throwing grenade? Yes, it could. If you were using it as a throwing grenade, would you want a longer delayed fuse? Yes, I would. You were asked some questions about the fuse that was caught in the hang fire. What did you do with that one? We collected it in its current condition, and it's in like an explosive proof container or something of that size at this time. Why didn't you ship it back to Anchorage? We're waiting for final approval to destroy it because we have the right to shoot it. Because we have to shoot it to make it safe. It's an unsafe condition right now. You couldn't ship it as is? We could, but I prefer not to. The bent levers that were on those 4 fuses around in the trailer, were those still operational fuses? Yes, they were. I have no other questions for this witness. Okay, you may be excused. That's the end of Mr. Regopolo.